Welcome back to the Tech Woke channel. I am your host, Chris. I am an RMS specialist inside the GovTech space. And in today's video, we're going to talk about what does an ISSO do during their daily life as an ISSO? Like, what do we do? I keep getting this question over and over and over and over again by various people, and they just want to know what does an ISSO in the government space do? So I'm going to explain what an ISSO does and break it down, the different tasks that I do as an ISSO, just so the audience and people can know in general what does an ISSO does, because a lot of people don't know. People just think it's just paperwork, but I'm going to give a different perspective on it and just kind of break it down. So I'm going to share my screen so people can see what's going on with being an ISSO. Okay, so I have my screen up. I'm going to go to this document I created. So in this document, I call it Daily Tasks of an Information System Security Officer. So currently, just so people can know, I am currently work as an information system security officer in the federal space. I have about 5 years of experience. As an ISSO, we specialize in the risk management framework to ensure the security and compliance of government systems. And just so people can understand, if somebody brings in a system inside the government, we have to go off the RMF framework to make sure it's compatible to be used in the government space. So that's kind of what I do for my job, and that's the main job of an ISSO. Okay. So there's different key responsibilities of an ISSO. And I'm going to break it down. I got about 12 of them, 14 of them. So I'm going to break it down so people can understand what it is. And I got bullet points so I can kind of make sure that I'm breaking it down from point to point to point to point. So the first key responsibility of an ISSO is stakeholder engagement. So what I have here is communicate regularly with system owners, security teams, developers, auditors, and stakeholders to ensure the compliance of risk management. So as an ISSO, we're talking, what I mean by stakeholders, that's anybody has a stake in the program. PMs, auditors, anybody. That's my job to communicate to them. So we're communicating things that's going on with the system, vulnerabilities, documentation that needs to be completed, anything that came out in the news, vulnerabilities, 0 days, anything regarding the program. ISSO's job is to talk to different stakeholders and just explain to them what's going on. And you have various meetings to discuss this. So keep that in mind. If I'm talking about stakeholders, I'm talking about people that has a stake in that program. And that's anybody that has a stake that needs to know something. Okay. So another task that we do, and I'm going to read what I wrote: vulnerability management, reviewing security scans, Nessus, ACAS, Tenable, to identify vulnerabilities and ensure remediation efforts are properly checked. So as an ISSO, there's different vulnerabilities that come out. A vulnerability management is just make sure you have something in place to continuously scan it every 1 to 2 weeks. It could be 1, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, but it's something that continuously scans a program to make sure we don't have any vulnerabilities, like any category 1s, category 2s, category 3s, anything that pops up from the system. And there's different ways to do vulnerability management. Usually you get ACAS scans, you can get Nessus, Tenable, any way you use to get any scans to see what's going on with the system. That's what you're doing. That is vulnerability management. So just keep that in mind. That's what we're doing. Okay, so plan of action and milestones development. So what I have is document vulnerabilities that can't be remediated and tracking their resolution. So as an ISSO, a plan of action and milestone is literally a plan of action. So you're creating a plan of action and different milestones you're going to hit if you need to create something for the program. For example, documentation. You might not have a documentation for the program. So we're creating a plan of action to create the documentation for the program. And sometimes documentation can take sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 6 months, sometimes 3 months. Documentation is hard to create. You're constantly updating it all the time. Or you can get a vulnerability, say you get a 0 day. You cannot remediate that vulnerability currently. So if I can't remediate this vulnerability currently, then I have to document it. I have to put things that we have in place to slow it down or lower that vulnerability. And then we have to create milestones that the team and all the stakeholders have to hit to be able to remediate this vulnerability. So that's the point of a plan of action and milestones. Continuous monitoring. What I have right here is using EMAS, Splunk, Tenable, SIEM solutions, or monitor security controls of the system compliant. So continuous monitoring is when you're continuously monitoring a system for things. So for example, if there's vulnerabilities, we're continuously monitoring them. If we use a tool called EMAS, we continuously put things in there and we monitor it all the time. Everybody on the team is constantly monitoring everything on the team, on the program. So you're continuously monitoring, you're continuously testing controls, you're continuously creating poems, you're continuously doing vulnerabilities. That's what you're doing when you're continuously monitoring. It doesn't stop. Even if you do get an ATO, even before ATO, you're continuously monitoring a program. So either way is taken care of. So that's what continuously monitor doing. That's what we do as ISSOs. Okay. So we have Security Technical Implementation Guide, STIGs. So STIG review. So what I have here is assessing STIGs checklist and ensure the DoD DISA security baseline collaborating with systems or hardened configuration. So basically what STIGs are, when you get a STIG is when you somebody, say if you're using a Windows system, okay, the system administrator or sometimes ISSOs have to make sure that the program is checking each box on that STIG, okay, to make sure it's compliant to government use, because some things that's done in the private sector cannot be used in the government, just to make sure things ain't being done properly. So we're reviewing STIGs on a constant basis. So we're reviewing the STIGs to make sure there's no open vulnerabilities. If there are open vulnerabilities, we got to make sure we pull them. So we're constantly reviewing STIGs, and STIGs can be, if you ever want to practice with STIGs, you can download STIG Viewer, you can download STIGs and go on cyber.mail, or you can check out some of the videos I have on the podcast, but that's what you're constantly doing in this field. So that's what reviewing STIGs are. Security threat analysis. So what I have here is continuously reviewing threat intelligence reports, monitor attack trends, and assessing impact on the system. So you always have to pay attention to what's going on and intel-wise, looking up reports, even watching podcasts, they'll tell you about certain things. CyberWire is a good one. You have to constantly monitor what's going on with what's going on out in the world. Even threats. Some threats you might not even know applies. So you just got to constantly pay attention to intelligence and things like that. Pay attention to what's going on to fix the system. So just make sure you do that as an ISSO, and that's what we're constantly doing. Is we're doing a lot of research as an ISSO. So a lot of times we're just reading, so that's what an ISSO is doing. So we have incidents response coordinations, working with SOC team to respond to security incident, forensic analysis reporting. So yeah, so say if something that goes down, the system breaks, say somebody hacks a system, a lot of the times ISSOs, we get the first alert and we have to pass it down, but we're coordinating with people during an incident response to make sure something is getting done, because this is really big. If something's messing up a government system, we have to make sure that we're doing incident response. So that's one of the main things we're doing as ISSO. We're all part of that. And we 9 times out of 10 create the policies for that to make sure there's an incident response plan if anything happens with anything that goes on with the system that you are managing. So that's what you're doing as ISSO. So access control, least privilege enforcement, reviewing and approving user requests, ensuring role-based access control and least privilege. Yeah, as ISSOs, we are paying attention to that. Sometimes we don't really do it as much, but some ISSOs do. But we're always constantly reviewing, depending on what you're doing, to see who has access to certain things and things like that. But I don't do it, but some ISSOs do. But that's one of the things that we pay attention to. Security awareness training. Ensuring all personnel is completing required training and adhere to cybersecurity processes. We don't do this as much, but we do let people know if they do need training and things like that, to make sure that we are all aware of what's going on. And if anything happens, then they'll know. And sometimes that can be part of incident response plan, things like that. But, that's one of the things we're doing as ISSO. Policy and document management, updating and maintaining security plans, SSPs, policies, procedures, and security documentation. So as an ISSO, that's one of the main jobs. Some programs have technical writers. I have written a lot of documents for myself on programs, or just follow a template to get the proper thing done for the program. But that's another thing you're doing is this: is you're creating policies for the program that sometimes they never exist. So you're creating that so the program can have certain things if things happen, like access control policy, SSP, auditing policy, just things that are in place. So if we need to reference, it's always there for the program. So change management, configuration control, participation in change control CCBs to assess the security impact of software updates. That's things you're doing as an ISSO. You're always with engineers going over things of configurations and things that can update, that needs to be updated for a program or process. So you're always in meetings in those places to constantly monitor things like that. Okay, security control implementation and testing. Assessing and deployment of validation, security tools, encryption, multi-factor authentication, and other cybersecurity practices. So as it is, so you're constantly testing controls. We usually use software called EMAS. It's based off the NIST guidelines, and you're testing all the controls, meaning you're reviewing the control, you're reading it, you're saying, do we have this or not? That's how you test it. You either make it compliant and A or non-compliant, and that's how you test the control. You're doing that on a constant basis. And meetings and briefings. Regular attend security status meetings, assess risk assessments, and briefings with leadership and stakeholders. As a ISO, that's majority of your job. Sometimes you can spend half the day on meetings. Meetings are important inside government space so people can be informed on what's going on. Again, there's a lot of stakeholders. It's a lot of things that's changing, and people need to be informed. So that's one of the biggest things you're doing as an ISO. And you have to have very good communication skills, extrovert, things like that to get the job done. So being an ISO, you have to be able to talk, meetings. You're going to be in there reporting people. So as an ISO, our role is crucial in ensuring the federal systems remain secure, compliant, resilient against cyber threats. We serve to bridge the technical teams, security policies, and risk management to safeguard critical and government systems. And that's what you're doing as an ISO. That is your job. People want to get into cybersecurity to get paid, but to get paid, you got to do your job and make sure this is a big space. When you're in the federal space, you need to protect these systems. This is our government systems. You want to make sure everything is secure. So as an ISO, you need to make sure you're doing that as a constant basis if you want to get in this field. And that are some of the daily tasks of an ISOs. There's more in-depth tasks, but that's pretty much all we have for what you're doing as an ISO, okay? So if you enjoyed the video, remember, like, subscribe, and comment down below if you had anything. It helps the channel. Make sure you check that out. Also, I'm having a school community that's specifically on government workers, cybersecurity, and also being an ISO. I want to have some courses and things like that. If you're interested, I'm going to have the link in below, so just make sure you check that out. Also, go on techwokepodcast.com. Check it out. Check out the videos. Subscribe to the newsletter. Also, shop in shoptechwoke.com, because when you shop TechWoke, all that supports the channel. Buy some merch. Everything is going to support the channel. And if I'm helping you out and you want to keep this content going, it has to, it helps benefit the channel and helps the channel going. So check that out. Support the channel. But that's pretty much it, everybody. Remember, everybody, get 1% better every day. Peace out. I'll see you on the next one.